Hello, guys. Welcome back to Miss Me podcast. As usual, you know how much I love to bring authentic guests around the world to my show. And today, another amazing guest. Hello, Max Singer, and let him introduce a little bit about who he is and what he's been doing. Hello, Max.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you? We'll have
I
amazing
am.
morning today with you for sure. Let's introduce
I
about you
am.
and what you've been doing.
Yes, I'm super excited to be on the show, and yeah, eager to share a little bit about myself. So, my name is Matt Singers, and I am a management coach. I've been so for 12, 13 years now, and I own many companies at this point. So, I have six businesses now. So, I run a big event every year in Saigon, Vietnam, around online marketing. I also have a business around virtual assistants where we have hundreds of staff, which is super fun. I also have an in-house SEO company where we basically build our own sites, grow them up, and sell them for a profit. And we run a job board in South Africa because that's one of my favorite high-end locations. And then we have a SaaS tool, which is like a management application that managers can use to manage their team better. So lots of fun companies. And yeah, my passion in life is definitely around leadership and management. I spent many years in the corporate world working with Xerox, IBM, big companies. And I learned a lot of things, a lot on my own. And really, my passion is not being a leader. My passion is being a great leader, and that's what I spend my life trying to teach other people how to do. Because I think most people in their career have had both good and bad bosses, and the difference is huge. Unfortunately, in many companies and many places, there's not a lot of training. When someone is put into a leadership role, they just, they kind of have to figure out what to do themselves. And my passion is really helping companies make sure their leaders are well trained and their leaders have a good basic understanding of how to lead well so that everyone is happier. So that's my
Wow, that's
passion.
a that's a very very interesting role, by the way, and I will highlight that it's very impressive that you can manage so many business in a many role, and I mean it's have to be multitask for sure, but at the same time, as a leader myself, I can imagine how packed with that, and you still able to make time to be on my show. So I'm very appreciative for that. The first question of the day is really about that leadership. How can you manage your personal life at the same time you have to deal with all these busy tasks as a leader, especially when per day people come to you for problem that they would love to hear your advice, your direction, your vision, and how to solve it. How do you manage your time in busy
Yeah.
schedule that way?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not that busy. So my core focus, obviously, management is all about giving other people ownership and responsibility, right? So the biggest thing is definitely about delegating in the right ways. And in most of the companies, so in some of the companies, I'm the CEO and I have two or three people reporting to me. In most of the company, I just have one person running the business. So I just have one person. So like in total, I have maybe 9 or 10 people reporting to me. So it's not that many. Um, from that point of view, right, really the essence is learning how to delegate well, right? So when most people kind of make the mistake of delegating tasks and handing over tasks to other people. So they sit down, figure out how to do something, and then they're like, "Hey, can you do this one thing?" But leadership and management is really about delegating responsibility and ownership, right? Most of the things my people do, I'm not the expert at. They're way better at it than I am. So therefore, most of the time, if I have any questions, it's more about having a conversation about priorities of the business or understanding of the business. But generally, my goal is always to develop people that are better at doing their specific task than I am. And therefore, my goal is to not be the expert, right? So obviously, from a leadership and management standpoint, I might be an expert, but when I look at my marketing team, I'm not the expert. They're way better at it than I am. When I look at my operations team, they're way better at it than I am. When I look at my recruitment team, they're way better at it than I am. And that is the essential way if you want to Like even if you have one business and you want to, spend very little time on it, that's the approach to take.
Yeah. I because you mentioned about management and leadership. I would ask more about that part because I found most of the business they struggling to define between a good manager and a good leader. And like you said, the leader is you have to take ownership and responsibility for it. So
Yeah.
how do you train your team to can understand the difference between that, and what is the most struggling or the problem that you deal with in the past of training a leader?
Mhm. Yeah, I think definitely delegation that I just mentioned is a big thing. I think generally the main difference is the mindset. So there's a big difference, sort of mindset wise, between being an individual contributor, meaning you are the person doing something, versus being a manager. Like the difference between those two mindsets are huge. And I think that's when I go through my management training, that's a huge part of it, right? So the thing is, when you're an individual contributor, so let's say you work in a company and you might be an accountant. Now, if you're an accountant, it's all about what you do. It's all about the numbers you put in the system. It's all about how you do it, how fast you do it, how good you do it, right? It's all about you. The second you're a leader and you manage other people, it stops being about you. Now, in fact, as a leader, you can do your job 100% perfect. But the thing is, if the team doesn't deliver the right results, that doesn't matter. So most individual contributors, they struggle because what happened is they, for example, again, as an accountant who become a manager of other accountants, they were promoted because they were a great accountant. And because they were promoted as a great accountant, they feel they have to keep doing what they did as an accountant. And that is generally not the case. The whole focus is that when you get promoted, you have to get out of the mindset of being an accountant and you have to get into the mindset of being a leader and a manager. And that mindset transition and really going through that and really focusing on your team, right? So most people I meet, they're like, oh, I'm too busy to manage my team. I have too many things to do to have meetings with my team. And here's the thing: if you're a manager, you have that problem, you're 100% prioritizing the wrong way. The most important thing as a manager is to spend time with your team so that they effectively can do the things that is on your plate. All right. So over time, if you look at your plate today, the things you're doing today, if you're doing anything today that you were doing a year ago as a task, as a deliverable, you're not growing yourself and your team fast enough, right? So the focus is consistently looking at what are the things that I'm doing task related and how can I find someone in my team who can do that instead of me, right? That is the essence of management. And the only things that I say when you're a manager within a business, the only two things you have to do is the one-to-one with your team member, the one-to-one meetings, and it's deciding on the people who join your team. Those are the only two things that you must do as a leader. Everything else that is on your plate, you want to delegate to your staff. And I mean everything, right? You
Yeah.
have to think what when I worked in the corporate world, like I was promoted many times, and the way that was done was because soon as I started in a new team, I was instantly looking to understand, okay, who is the person that can do my job when I get promoted? So I was constantly looking at how can I give ownership and responsibility to the people around me so that all the things I'm doing right now, they can take over and I am no longer needed. Because here's the thing: most people are afraid of not being needed. Most people are afraid of other people knowing what they do. So they
Mm.
hold onto things so well because they're like, oh, if someone knows what I do, they'll just fire me and give them the job. And it's the opposite. When someone know what you do, they can do your job and you can get promoted, right? Like a company which, like honestly, you don't need any particular skill. If you're able to give someone the ownership and responsibility to do your job at a pretty decent level, that means you can do more things. And if you've ever walked up to your boss and said, "Hey, boss, I have some free time. Can I help you?" The answer of every boss and every leader is yes.
Yeah.
Because people, like in a leadership position, in a like as an entrepreneur, whatever your situation is, if you're managing other people, you always have things that are not getting done. You always have ideas, you always have projects you want to do, you always have things you want to do better. And the second someone comes to you, like if you have a good member of staff that comes to you and say, "Hey, I have some spare time. Do you have anything I can do?" Two things happen. One, they learn more about your job. They start doing tasks that are even more valuable, and that increases their value in the business. And two, what happens second is that they learn more. They understand more than just their level, and they put themselves in a position where it's significantly easier to promote them. So most people that have been around, like if you're sitting in a company and you haven't been promoted for a long time as a leader, it's typically because you're not delegating well and you're not teaching someone else how to do your job. Because me as a manager or as a boss, if I promote someone and their old team crumbles and can't do what they're supposed to do, then I'm not going to promote them, right? If they haven't taught someone else how to become the next them, they're basically unpromotable.
Yeah. Let's go to the smaller scale of business, because you share is very very big subject of in terms of corporate, and you be a good management in the bigger team. Let's talk about if the viewer today, the audience that watching video, most is like young. I think now they call them is solopreneur, right? Or like
Mhm.
young entrepreneur that they want to start up. What's the first tip you can give to young entrepreneur about leadership, and what they should start build a team, or whatever that business
Yeah.
they need to start? I mean, every business start still need to start with the leader. So what's the
Yes.
tip you would give to that young person? What did they need to learn? What did they need to apply? What skill? Like you say, you don't even need the skill, but in the starting of the entrepreneur, I think we
Yeah.
have to be everything, right? Yeah.
So the big thing, particularly for small individual businesses, where I see most people struggle is they don't define what they're doing well enough.
Mm,
So what I mean with that is that there's a term called niching or niching down,
mm,
and that's probably one of the most important business terms out there. And the whole concept is very simple. When you're starting a business, a lot of people they do this. They basically say, "I want to work with anyone that have this kind of problem." So let's say you have someone that says, "Okay, I want to do social media. I want to help companies do social media." And they're
mm,
like, "Yeah, anyone with any social media, come to me." Right? The problem is when you do that, you don't particularly become an expert at something, you become decent at a bunch of things.
mm,
Right? And it's very difficult to grow and scale a company where you're doing that. If you're sitting as a business owner or a solopreneur and you're like, "Well, no one else can do my job except me," that is because you have not built a business. You have built yourself a full-time sort of well-paid job, but you
agree.
haven't built a business, right? When you look at most of the successful business out there, you can learn a lot from that. So if you look at a company like Coca-Cola, like when they started out, they didn't have 7,000 projects or products. They have one product, Coca-Cola, right? They built one process of something they did extremely well, right? When you look at successful companies, let's take in the social media space, it is companies that find a particular problem to solve and typically on a particular platform. So again, like posting on a platform doesn't necessarily get results, right?
Mm,
Just putting a post up with a picture or doing something, that doesn't necessarily get you results. So what you're looking at, a business owner don't just want social media. Every time a business owner want to spend money, they're looking to get a return of the investment. If I go
mm,
and pay someone, let's say $10,000 a month to do my social media, my goal is to make back more than $10,000, right? I want to make 20, 30, $40,000. And the only way you can do that is if the person doing your social media are really, really good at what they're doing and they know how to get that output. So, as example, you see companies, and if you're on LinkedIn, for example, you see a lot of companies doing this. But if you focus in and just do one thing, so that could be your focus could be just posting quality content on LinkedIn for clients in a particular niche. Then you hone in, you focus in on one thing. You learn how to post quality content on LinkedIn. You learn the type of content that works. You figure out like how to write on LinkedIn, and you get to know the LinkedIn algorithm. So if your job or if your focus as a company is just teaching or not teaching, but posting content for clients on LinkedIn that gets them business, right? That is one very singular process. And you can break that down. So you can maybe have one staff member who just do research to figure out what is this client all about, what's the kind of content we need to do for them, etc. They can maybe do a content brief for a writer whose expertise it is to write really good posts based on what it is the client needs, right? And you might even have a third person who maybe look at the analytics and trying to review and say, okay, we planned this content. How did that do? How good was it? And then you literally have a company with sort of three departments, and then you can scale that, right? Then you go out and you look for more clients that need that specific thing. But doing that, you become an expert. First of all, you become much better at one thing than if you're trying to do all social media and everything all the time. You become much better if you just focus on one thing. It
Mm.
becomes much easier for you to sell your service, because when you go out to clients, when let's say we meet at a network event, and I can say, yeah, I make clients a lot of money by helping them post on LinkedIn, right? It's very specific. You know what I do, and
Mm.
it's very easy for you to ask, okay, what does that cost? When you meet someone at a networking event and they say, oh, I do social media, what does that even mean, right? People don't know what it means. People, it's wide. And people have no idea how to even evaluate what you're doing. So many social media companies, as example, they get 5 clients, they stay with them for 2, 3, 4 months, and then they leave, and they don't understand why. But it's typically because they're not providing a measurable return that the clients can work with.
Yeah, I
So,
agree with you
right.
on that. Is the precise about what do you want to sell and who you want to reach. I call it like market research. You need to know exactly what type of client you're going to reach, how much the income is, what is the problem they have to deal with every day, and that's how you start the first client for the small entrepreneur. And then of course the scale part will be harder part. I agree with you on that as well. When you go to the bigger team, are you willing to
I
let go of power, right? Like, are you willing to let
Yeah,
someone better than you?
I think the essence is that when you build a simple framework, it becomes much easier to hire people. The problem is,
Mm,
again, if you have to hire someone for, again, social media, if you
yeah.
need someone who's an expert on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube and everything, hiring a good person is really damn difficult because no one is
Yes.
great at all those things.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have to hire one person who knows how to write good posts on LinkedIn, that
Mm.
is such a more specific skill set, and you can literally just go out there and look at who create good content on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's a very good tip actually. That's a very, very solid advice. Hire talented and good people is the most challenging for all the business. For all the business, I think that's a bigger problem that we have now because people who good at something doesn't mean they can good at run business, right? But straight away they will think if I so good, I will open it myself. I don't need to work for you, right? So that's is come to the next question, like how do you manage to keep talented people work with you? What you give outside there that is so attractive that keep people loyalty with you, keep people work with you, and keep talent come to you?
Yeah, I think just a comment to your last note is, yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs expect other people to just start their own company. But
Yeah.
but reality is starting your own company takes a lot of work. Like
I
I
know.
always tell people, when you start a business, like you don't make money for the first 3 years. For
Yeah,
most
I
people, it
agree.
takes about 3 years to get into a sensible business. And one is
Yeah,
many people don't have the risk tolerance. Like many people don't want to risk not making money for an extended period of time. They don't have,
yeah,
they just don't have the circumstances, right?
yeah,
So I think it's very easy to think as an entrepreneur, think that everyone will just start their own business, but that have not been my experience. So
mm,
my experience is that if you hire good people, you manage them well, you give them good opportunity to grow, and you give them ownership over things, then they're very likely to stick around, right? Like I have very, very few people leave any of my companies. Even our outsourcing company, like we very few people leave. The core focus from my point of view is that if you really give them the right level of ownership and responsibility, they they feel they're growing, right? They're learning new things. They're constantly getting better. And if you look at humans, like never mind business, but if you just look at from a human perspective, like what are the two things humans want to be? One, they want to be important, right? Like they want to feel I'm important to this company. I matter. That's really important for humans. And in most companies, people are just like, yeah, I just press this button 700 times every day, and they don't feel important. They don't feel like they matter. Two, they want to feel valuable. They want to feel like when they get up in the morning, if they show up at work, it makes a difference, right? And that's really what humans want. We, as human beings, we want a purpose. We want to feel like we matter. We want to be something, right? And if you give people that opportunity, if you give them ownership, if you give them responsibility, most people will really appreciate and love that. And yeah, that's my experience. So I honestly I don't have a particular hard time with it, but it starts with good leadership. It starts with good management. But as soon as you have that, I don't find it particularly difficult to have people stick around.
you've been very inspiring to me. By the way, after the conversation with you, I feel the Iron Man inside you, the soul of a real leader that is very firm, very strong, and very precise of the direction and the vision, and even the word you say, every sentence you going to release it out is full of wisdom and the firmness, and definitely is from experience. All this information and knowledge. Of course, people can read anywhere, but for my personal experience, if you listen from someone that read book and share back with you, and someone who really read book and done it and finish it and successful and share with you, is totally different experience. And that's
Yeah,
also make me curious. I mean, everybody have a story behind of their life that make them no choice to be who they are today. That's what my belief, because my life is the same as well. I would never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I would never thought I will do something big for the world, because as a Vietnamese woman, I will always think I'm very small and tiny and worthless, right? And life happened to change me to be where am I today. And the same question that I want to ask about you: who is Max in the past? How was the family? What motivate you so much that today you can be this amazing leader?
two key things I would say. So actually, I'll just take a step back and sort of comment on your previous piece. So I don't definitely don't consider myself being a particular Iron Man. And the reason for this, so I train many different kind of leaders, right? And the thing is, I lead with kindness. I'm generally a very kind human, and one of the key things I focus on is everyone can learn to lead, right? So a lot of time when people think about leaders, when they think about entrepreneurs, they think about people like Elon Musk or Bill Gates or someone like that, right? They think they have to be like that to be an entrepreneur, and that is not accurate, or to be a good leader, right? Everyone can learn to become a good leader based on their strengths and their weaknesses. So learning leadership is really learning what is your natural strength and what is your natural weaknesses. There, there's no such thing as a born leader. All leaders is people who, like yourself, like you mentioned, they find themselves in a situation they are forced to stand up at some point, or they choose to stand up at some point, and eventually they take initiative, they take ownership, and they make things happen, right? So in terms of my background, um, I'm from Denmark, and I kind of left home when I was about 15 or so to go study. I very quickly got bored of studying, and as soon as I turned 18, I kind of left my degree, moved to Ireland, and started working. Now, I never really enjoyed school very much. It was not like I just didn't feel I learned much, and it wasn't very inspiring to me, to put it politely. And my whole childhood, I've been told that you should love school, because when school is finished and you get out to real life, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be boring. You have to do this work thing. It's horrible. And what happened was, when I got my first job, like, one of my first bosses was absolutely amazing. Like, she was super inspiring. She made people love their job. I mean, it's not like you wake up at 7 a.m. and you're like, yes, I'm going to work. But people enjoyed their job. They enjoyed their work. They enjoyed what they were doing, and that was incredibly inspiring to me. And basically, in probably 3 4 months working with her, I went from, I want to do some IT stuff, to I want to do what she does, which was leadership and management. And I was only 18 at the time, but I didn't know how to get started, because every time I asked people, they were like, yeah, go take a management degree or go and take this thing. And I was like, no chance I'm going to go to do another 4 or 5 years of schooling and so on, right? So my focus really became, how can I become a leader uh, by my own way, and through my own learning. So I honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. And one day I walked into a library. I found 10, 15 books with the word leadership or management in them, and I bought them, and I just started reading. So I literally just started from scratch, trying to figure out what am I supposed to do? What does leaders do? And my goal was never just to become a leader. My goal was to be a great one. Because again, I even in my first job, I saw around. I saw a lot of not so good leaders, and I saw some very good leaders. And yeah, I started self studying, and I ended up doing so for many, many years. I read more than 600 books in the following 10, 12 years. I ended up paying out of my own pocket for leadership seminars, leadership trainings. I spent a lot of time and effort just every day. So I learned very early on, it was about consistency. So my goal was to spend 2 hours every day learning. So I spent 2 hours either mostly in the evening, because I started my job pretty early, like 7 a.m. So usually after work, and in the weekends, I would spend 2 hours every single day, by either reading, taking an online course, doing something to grow and improve my leadership skills. And that was eventually what helped get me into a leadership role.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I mean, I've slightly different with you about how leadership will hit me and start the journey. But the key I highlight, because I'm the same like you, I'm a self-learning. I mean, you go Vietnam, you know how hard was that for a Vietnamese person can go to school, and yeah, I don't have money to go for university and degree. I only finished my psychology diploma in Singapore after I financially independent, right? It's very tough to get education, but after go through self learning, I agree with you. Like, you have to be motivated to read book, to research, to learn from people around, and is and again, start early. Start early is the key, because we have time to fail, right? So if the young person want to learn to be a leader, what the tip that you will give them as well? Because for me, I was very, I don't think it's lucky, because I will, like, I agree with you, I meet a lot of bad leader, and I don't feel shame or guilt to say that publicly, because it's really horrible the way they lead. And when I was young, I don't understand why I always face with this horrible monster leader, right? They're more about power, about greed, about managing people based on their um, fear of losing power. Basically, now I have a knowledge to call it. Back then, I don't understand. And one day, when I happened to meet one of my mentor, I have few mentor who guide me to be where am I today, and I forever grateful for my mentor. And he mentioned one thing about why a good leader choose to be humbly step back and don't want to take the power. That's why so many bad leader rise up. And that's hit me hard to the face, because back then I don't even do YouTube, I don't even want to bring my company online. I feel like I contribute to the world on my way. I don't have to bragging about that. I don't need to go there and tell people I'm a good leader. I know myself I'm a good leader. And my mentor will say that to my face, and it wake up call for me like, oh, I think the definition I think of few years ago of what leader should be and now is different. At the same time, when I going to do a lot of charity in my country, because when my company profit, that's what I promise to God. I say whatever I make, I want to take care back to my people, because I grow up that unlucky, and I want to make sure the kid that unlucky can have a chance to learn, and I want to teach them the right thing to learn. And when I go all these places, also the same. We leader, we get feedback sometimes from universe. I don't know if you believe that. I believe that. And most of the location I go help, they tell the same thing to me that, oh, thanks for you to come, because people like you will share about our village, and then people will come, will help us. We don't have social media. We don't know how to reach people, but the orphan place need money and all that. And it hit me again, because I realized that by me lie to myself that be humble and quiet about be a good leader is actually helping for my ego. I don't want people to know what I'm doing, but actually it's still for my ego as a good leader. And I hit this problem a lot when I train leader. The more strong and good leader, but come with kindness and good heart, they always feel doubt of themselves, or they don't feel good enough, or they choose to be live small and humble and good enough for themselves and their family and community. And the fear of go to public or speak out like, oh, you have a two type of leader, doesn't matter that this side they do whatever they want, but I want to do here. And that is the next question I want to ask you: how to find a good mentor and a good leader that already in that path, then we can role model on them and learn from them, especially when they're so busy. The higher you are, the more success you are, the less time you have. And some people don't even have the attention to help back, because not because they don't want to, but they are also being hurt and damaged a lot in the journey of being a leader, right? So how can young people who are watching my video, watching our conversation, they realize they want to learn leadership, where they can reach out to a good leader?
So just a couple of comments to your previous piece. So again, there is a lot of bad leaders out there. But here's the thing, no one is trying to be bad. People
Yes.
are doing what they think is the right thing to do. So honestly, even when you have a bad leader, like it doesn't mean they're a bad person. It means they don't know any better, right?
Yep.
So I think like because I've had a bunch of bad leaders and I realized that pretty early on, and the thing is it's easy to like hate on other people, it's easy to be unhappy with other people, but again, if you understand like people are coming from their point of view, they're always trying to do their best. Like I always say, no one wakes up in the morning, even employees, and say I want to do a bad job today.
Yep.
Like if
Agree.
someone do a bad job, it's because they don't know what to do, they don't know how to do it, right? And
Mm.
that's the essence. Now from that point of view, when you look at sort of mentorship and so on, the biggest thing is ask. So you talked about a lot of great things with helping people and so on. The number one thing is that if you want to help other people, the best way to do so is inspire them.
Mm.
Because a lot of the time, when you look at charity, for example, most charity is done incorrectly. If you
Mm.
go and give
Agree.
someone money, they will waste it, right? If you
Agree.
go and give people something, they will just use it and they will not learn. Like they will feel
Yep.
better for a minute, but if you go and give a poor person a bunch of cash or a bunch of food, they will eat it and they will be no better off, right?
Yes.
So the real way for me to do charity is really to help inspire people to do things. So when you're talking about mentors, like this is really close to my heart and this is very important. When you talk about mentors, the number one thing a mentor is someone who helps and guides you. But the number one thing a mentor wants is someone who takes action. I
Yes.
have mentored a lot of people in my life, and so many people come to me and say, "Oh, can you help me? Can you help me?" And you guide them and you try and help them out, and then they do nothing, right?
Mm.
And as a mentor, the one thing I do not want to do is waste my time. My
Mm.
time is incredibly valuable. I
Yep.
help many, many people all over the world become amazing humans and do amazing things. But the one thing I don't want to do is waste my time because it's so valuable. So, what I would recommend first, if you're looking for a mentor, try and be as clear as you can in terms of what it is you're looking for help with. And number two, when you start working with a mentor, I would absolutely make sure that you don't just sit and listen and think, okay, great, and then do nothing. Like, make really sure that you honor your mentor's time by taking action. I'm not saying you have to do what he or she says,
Mm.
because not everyone's right, not everything is right for your
Yep.
journey, but do something, right? So I've mentored a lot of people that have come out exceptionally well, who have done great things. And that's not been because they've done what I've said. It's because they have listened to all the things I say and they've taken action and ended up somewhere. And a lot of them have ended up somewhere I didn't expect, but they've ended up somewhere great, right? And
Yes.
that's how you're a great mentee, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I would say the key thing is, and the simple thing is, no one asks, right? Like, reality is, if you, let's say you're in business and let's say you want to be a good leader, if you just go to something like LinkedIn and you message a bunch of good managers or so, or message a bunch of managers on LinkedIn and say, hey, I can see you work as a manager at Google. I can see you work as a manager here. You know, I would love to have a 30-minute conversation with you about how you've gotten to where you are. Like, I would love to invite you to a cup of coffee or something. A lot of people will say yes, but no one does that. Particularly, like, you're from Vietnam, right? Here, people are afraid of reaching out. People are afraid of asking. But
Mm.
really, if you don't ask, you don't get. The
Yep.
worst thing that can happen is someone saying, I don't have the time. But very few people actually take the step to reach out.
Yeah.
And I've done it every time I go somewhere new. I mean, I lived all over the world. I go to many new cities. And when I come to Vietnam, for example, like, I open LinkedIn, I find a bunch of interesting people and I say, hey, I'm new in city. I would love to meet you. I would love to meet some cool people. Do you want to have a cup of coffee, a lunch, or whatever? And people I don't know. And many people probably say, no, I don't have time or whatever, but a bunch of people have the time and they will meet you.
Yeah.
And then very quickly you build a network, you get to know people, and you suddenly know people who are, you can build network with.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good tip. I should apply that in the future. Especially tell
Mhm.
my team to apply that. By saying applying that I'm going to do it in on my podcast. By the way, when you stop by Singapore, let's have a lunch together or dinner if you're in town.
Of
See,
course.
guys, that's what good student is. Apply what exactly you just learned. No, I'm really mean it. If you're around in Singapore and you stop by or any event, just let me know so we can catch up a little bit in person. Uh,
Yeah.
even
So
I know.
one other thing you mentioned earlier was, you said you didn't expect to be much because you're Vietnamese, you're a woman, you're looking at, you're small and tiny. But um, honestly, and this is not just about Asian or women or whatever, but all people are very good at making excuses why they can't do things,
Oh yeah, I
right?
mean that's when I was young. I
But
mean
but but this
that's
is,
all we know, right? When we were kid, we believe what parents tell us, what society. And to be honest, if I'm not moved to Singapore and I'm not live in this country for the last 11 years, I would still believe I'm still the same girl that limited belief. And I don't
yeah.
blame the 18 years old me. I don't.
Mhm.
I'm completely love her. I completely ownership toward her, and I love the part of her that she fighting for her life. She driven. She even homeless. She don't give up, and she believes that the world as it good person. Because I trust me. If at that age I don't believe that, I think I would die long time ago, right? Because Life was so tough when you earn education, don't have parents, and move to city. And I don't use that as excuses. I use that as the example that if I can be that and I can be this today, it means everybody can change. That's how I believe.
Yeah,
Everybody can change, but they have to make a choice to change and grow. They have to willing to, like you say, it's as a moment you wake up, nobody want to do a bad job. The day I wake up, I never choose to born in Vietnam, right? I never choose to cut where I come from. But today I choose where I stand. But I
mm,
never deny where I come from. I love my country. I
exactly.
keep even my podcast is Miss Nhi podcast because I love my Vietnamese name. I love that
Mm,
I'm in the world as same as other, that I have a brain, I have a soul, and I should use that for full purpose of serve other. Right? I find so this is just my personal belief. Yes, nobody wake up choose to be bad, but you
mm,
always have a choice when some other information outside there to tell you, hey, I think you do a bad job, or forever a lot of people leave you, or a lot of people suffering to be around you. It's the call to say, hey, I think something wrong with me. Because for me, the only way to tell the business or the organization is good or bad is based on the leader. The leader is the one who make everything happen. The leader who the one who inspiring, who pass down the task. At the same time, they can damage other people's soul or they inspire others to be a better version of themselves. It's all come down to one man, right? Like it's still something that we can't deny, right? And for me, I don't I don't create a war with them either. For I was very firm in my stand of, and this is what my belief as well. Come to this age, maybe grow older, I will be different, right? I don't know, but at this age, I find the evil can be a bigger horn, but the angel can be a bigger wing, and it's by choice, right? I will choose to continue do good. I will choose to continue be kind, and I choose to continue share the message that amazing leader like you know, kind heart, and I will continue do it. Nothing wrong or right. It's just I find if we keep complaining about the problem in the world, that a lot of bad leader, negative news, negative YouTube channel, negative and bullshit thing that the young generation been watching. But on this side, we do nothing about it, right? I mean, it's not a battle; it's just about a choice. So that's why I'm still doing it. I don't make excuses at all. Trust me. I share it to
But
motivate
I,
other.
I think that's my key thing is the motivation for us, right? Like a
Yeah.
lot of the time, it's easy for us as humans to look at things and make excuses why we can't. It's
Yeah.
so much easier for us to say, "Oh, I can't, whatever," because blah blah blah, right? One of the key things I learned is as humans, our absolute only limitation is our own head, right? Like
Mm.
we are the ones telling ourselves what we are capable of. We are the
Yes.
only ones limiting ourselves. We are capable of anything. And honestly, when you look at it, right, like everyone in the world have this idea that there's like a lot of white privilege, which I'm sure there is. But let's say you're born in the bottom half of the of in the US, for example. For you to go to top 1%, is going to be very, very difficult. If you
Yeah.
actually look at a country like Vietnam, the thing is getting into top 1%. I'm not saying it's easy, but what I'm saying is what it takes for someone being born in Vietnam, getting into the top 1%, is typically significantly less because it's not that hard to stand out. In a
Mm.
place like Vietnam, you obviously have to do things, but it's not that hard to be like, you just need to be a little bit better than other people, right? And the biggest thing for me, one of the core things when I talk to young people, one of the core things I always say is it's easy to say I can't and then sit down and watch TV. But
Yeah.
one of the things I've been so lucky with was I moved away from home when I was 15 and I couldn't
Yeah.
actually afford a TV in the beginning, which was great because I ended up doing life instead, right? So most people tell me they have no time, but when you look at the amount of time they watch TV, they look at the
Yeah.
amount of time they sit and look at their phone, the amount of time they do things that doesn't add value, right? If you're serious about your life, if you're serious about wanting to be something or wanting to become something, wanting to create a great future for your family, whatever age you are, right? You can, right? That's the key thing for me. Like everyone can go and create change.
Mm.
Everyone can say, I am gonna go and make something happen. So everyone can take initiative, they can do things. And particularly in the world today, right? Like when you look at someone like YouTube, like you can literally learn anything,
Yes.
right? I mean, there's so much free content out there. And
Yeah.
if you have a dream, if you have a goal of something you want to do, like if you start taking action, if you start learning, if you start doing things in that direction, eventually you're gonna end up there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, even how I start my YouTube channel is all learned from YouTube. How the people set up the camera, how the sound, like how do you start do the right content, how to figure out what a YouTuber is, what you should don't expect it from YouTube, and so on. So I'm with you 100%. You know, everybody can learn anything if they're willing to book work and action. I mean, you have to book work to learn something, and then after that you take action to improve. And self reflect sometimes it's not enough, then you need the good strong connection around. I mean, like good friendship, good leadership, good mentor, good partner, whoever that's solid like you and willing to tell to your face that you need to change. So that's also something that I want to know. How do you do with it? Is how do you give feedback to your team, and also support them emotionally so they can perform in their job well? What is the trick that you do that are working for you that someone outside there can learn from?
So the number one thing from my experience is caring, right? Like again, a lot of bosses sit around and like, oh, I'm too busy, I don't have time to have conversation, I don't have here's the thing, if you don't know your staff, if you don't have time to talk with them, how do you expect them to feel cared for?
Mm,
How do you expect them to feel important, right? Like when I'm talking with my managers, like even when I'm traveling, even when I'm at conference, whatever, I always try and make sure I do my one-to-one meetings with my managers because I want them to know how important they are for my business, right? Without them, I wouldn't have a business.
mm,
And the most important thing is really showing people that you really care about them. And I think there's no trick. Like reality is, if you can't find the time to show people how important they are to you, they are not going to stick around. You're not going to have a company, right? So the first thing before you do anything else is really show your people that you care about them. Show your people they're important to you, and really spend the time with them. Everyone, and I mean like 99.9% of people want to spend time with their boss.
yeah.
If they like and respect their boss, they would love to spend 30 minutes every single week having a conversation with you. And as a boss, if you don't have the time to do that, you're not prioritizing right. And I don't care if you're the CEO of the biggest company in the world. I don't care if you're the president of the United States. If you look at the president of the United States, trust me, he or she spends time with the people around them on a very regular basis. Right? They know and understand that they get the most things done. They achieve the most things if there are people around them that are executing. And that's what it's all about. Like being a great leader is not about doing things. It's not about you being the expert. It's not about you achieving things. It is about your team. It is about your team doing things. If you are the reason, if you're the sole reason your business is moving forward, if you go to the hospital for 3 months, let's say you get COVID and get in isolation somewhere, if you go to the hospital for 3 months and your business crash and burn, you don't have a business.
Mm,
So being a leader is ensuring that even if you disappear, I mean, I typically takes about 4 months of holiday every year between May and July, August, right? Where I still do my one-to-ones with my team, but I don't really do many other meetings. And that's because I'm traveling around, I'm doing a lot of speaking, and I'm busy traveling in general. But the thing is that my team makes sure that the company is usually better when I come back than when on holiday, right? And that's the essence. So if you cannot do that, if you're owning a company and you being sick or you being away, if you stop communicating for 3 months, if your company goes down, you have a problem, right? You don't
Yep.
have a business, you have a really glorified, well-paid job potentially.
Yeah.
And if you are in that situation, you want to start looking at learning how to lead and manage better so that your team can grow and take ownership.
Yeah. If one thing today I learned from you is how to say how to say the thing in a nicer way. Because you're very nice when you say you don't have a business, you have a qualified. I love it. It's like a way of say to the face, but it's so kind. It's so sweet. I'm not have that. I need to practice that. I need to practice because I'm tempted to a little bit call too direct, right? And I mean, same like you, I feel I don't have time for bullshit, and also the patient getting less over the years of run business. So I we have a lot of things in common, to be honest. I also left home when I'm 15. I start my first business when I'm 18 years old. Now I'm 32. So in terms of success in the degree level of people talk about university, I may don't have, but if talk about life and run business and fail and make a thousand of mistake, I will be good at it. I can take reward for that. So I think the key is start early, because what you're sharing I feel relate, because oh, he also start early, that's why it make him to be where he is today. And a lot of people show fear too much, like you say, like the fear that they have that hold them back, and the belief that they talk to themselves, it really hold them back, right? And
Yeah.
how about Max? If he cares so much for other, how about him when he in a lower time of his life, when he feels stressed in his work? I mean, I have a system right now to make sure that when I burn out, I know how to take care of myself. How about you? Where do you go to when you feel that
I'm
you need
I'm
support and
very
as well?
I'm very rarely stressed. I would say that much. I'm very relaxed as a person. I think the key thing for me is again having lots of good connections, having lots of good friends wherever I go. Right, so I'm always conscious. Like I travel a lot, and if I'm in a new place I've never been before, like I put an effort into meeting new people and having people I can surround myself with. Again, I have amazing friends all over the world already, and I always have people. If I have a particular problem, like I always have people I can call and talk with, and I think in business the number one thing is building network, right? So one of the key things for me was like you need to build a business, you need to find a vehicle to make you money, and then the next step to growth, both personally and for the business, is always network. It's network, network, network. Get to know more people. A lot of people, whatever level you're at, a lot of people have gone through the same things as you. And the more of those people you know, the more of those people you talk with, the easier it is to solve your problems. And very often when you meet people who are at a level above you, you
Mm.
know, like as humans, we all have problems throughout life.
Yes, yes.
And if you look back 10 years, the problem you were dealing with 10 years ago now seems so insignificant,
I know,
right?
right? It's become so not like, why is that also a
It's like
problem?
whatever. But you will see people who have the problems you had 10 years ago. And you're like, why do you worry? Just don't worry, don't stress, don't, it's easy, right? So the thing is, I look at life as like a ladder. So we have this ladder, and every time we face a problem, the problems we used to face that was simpler becomes less of a problem, right? So I
Mm.
understand that every time I have problems, someone else somewhere else have solved that problem very easily, right? So what I see as a big problem is not really a big problem. It's a big problem in my mind because in my brain it's the biggest thing, but it's not a big problem. So even when I see a problem, it's not a big problem. I know it's not a big problem. And the question for me is always, who have solved a problem like this before? Who do I know that have done something like this who I can ask for advice? And that's how I try and deal with things, right? A lot of things, again, I experience that when people get really stressed, it's typically because they put it all on their shoulders. So
Mm.
again, they're doing everything. They're the one doing everything. They're the one executing. They're not building a team. They're not able to trust other people around them. And again, as a leader, like that's the essence, right? You want to learn, you want to go through that experience, and you want to build a great team of people who are good at what they do and can help you and support you, right?
Yeah. Wow. That's a very responsibility and ownership in sharing with that sentence. So the end we have the
It,
five who already solve it before and learn it, guy. That's a really solid advice for you, guy. Matt was very pleasure to meet you and have this fruitful conversation for the last 1 hour with you. I would love to have more, but yeah, I mean, I know I have to let you go back, but your busy routine and it was so much value you've been sharing and add to my audience. I wish you health. I wish your business continues successful. I wish more people reaching out to you. By the way, guy, all his information will be under the description below. If you love the conversation we have, please reach out to him and same have a conversation, or maybe you want to learn more from him. Please reach out to him, and I would love to see your business grow and success more. And of course, I would love to meet you in the person so we can have more conversation as well. Thank you, Matt.
yep, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for continue support my Missy podcast. And don't forget to